As I'm out here cruising around, might as well talk about the bike I'm on, the 15 WR 250F. And it's not a perfect bike by any means. In fact, I readily acknowledge that the KTM 350 XC is a better, higher performance bike than this in a few areas like weight and power. But what's good about this bike is it has this really strong low end power right off the first crack of idle, and so that helps overcome its lack of horsepower, lack of peak horsepower. The other thing, it comes with a cooling fan. So like right now, if you were on the KTM 350 without a cooling fan, it's a little bit warmer today, upper 70s. I would be surprised if that bike would not be spewing already. And normally I don't stall this thing. Stalled it twice now, because I'm just kind of going slow here. So the cooling fan, the good suspension, Yamaha reliability. I've done nothing to this in 140 hours besides clean the air filters, change the oil. You can ride it like an XR 250. Here I am at the pass. Or you can ride it like a YZ 250F. This one, I guess this caveat, is if you just got this stock, it's not that good of a bike. It just doesn't have enough motor. So, but once you get the competition ECU, and on this I put the YZ pipe. Once you do those two things, and of course all the obvious ones that you do the day you get it, like the throttle stop and inlet baffle, etc., etc. But it really is YZ 250F performance on the engine. And it runs strong, and the main thing that this bike has that makes it worthwhile is the 6-speed transmission. What got me on the 250 kick, and I've had every bike from the Honda 650R all the way down to the YZ80, TTR 125s, everything. And I never would have thought a guy like me, 220 pounds, could possibly ride a 250F. And I'll give credit to the Dirt Bike Channel guy. He was the guy that first opened my mind to it. But I went and raced an enduro cross up in Utah on the YZ 250 two-stroke, and it had the tall first gear, pretty stiff clutch pull, hard explosive power. And so in an enduro cross, you're basically always in first gear, and you're always feathering the clutch. So a recluse is essentially mandatory, and you don't want to be stalling because you don't have electric start. So I thought, hey, if I got a 250F, YZ 250F with a recluse, I would have the best possible bike for enduro cross. Plus I was curious, I'd never ridden a 250F, didn't know anyone that had one to ride one. So I bought a 07 YZ 250F, put the recluse in it, and raced another enduro cross, and that bike was the perfect setup for that. So I like the 250F, but even just riding it from my house to the desert, with it only being a 5-speed with a motocross transmission, the top speed on that bike was 70 miles an hour with stock gearing, at close to or at 12,000 RPM. So at 35 miles an hour, you were doing 6,000 RPM in 5th gear. So the transmission held it back from being a good all-around bike. It was good because it was light, nimble, good suspension, the power was more linear than this bike. This bike comes on a lot more abrupt, so it was. It would have been better if it had more low-end power, but it was good enough. Anyhow, when they came out with this WR and the FX, and it had this 6-speed transmission, I was like, I gotta give that a shot. And then a year and a half later, when they were blowing out the 15s on eBay for $6,000 delivered, I couldn't resist. So I grabbed it. It got shipped to my house. Or had to go pick it up in town, but got shipped to Las Vegas. Went and picked it up. Got it out of the crate. And the top speed on this is 82. So the 6th gear really makes all the difference. And there's really nice spacing on the transmission. There's no big gaps. First is pretty low for most stuff, and 6th, you know, you can always use more top speed, just so that when you're going 60 on the highway, you're not revving out a ton. But you know, it definitely is very comfortable at 45, 50 miles an hour, and we'll do that. So that's what makes this bike worthwhile, is the 6-speed transmission. Did some other things, like I added the IMS tank, which was probably overkill, but the stock tank, because it was black, it was such a pain in the butt. Every time I filled it up with fuel, I made a mess. And I read, you know, Motocross Action would gripe about the stock fuel tank on the YZ, and I was like, oh, come on, you guys are just being babies. But it really did get to be a hassle, and it was only a 2-gallon tank. So I bought the maybe 3.2 or something, the IMS, which is a pretty quality tank, good fit and everything. Some of the things I don't like about it are IMS's fault, and some of them are just Yamaha didn't give them much to work with. So putting the tank on, for example, it's a 2-person job. You ain't getting that done by yourself. You got to take the headlight off, number plate off, subframe off, exhaust off, and the bad thing about that is now it's so hard to get the tank off that you are less inclined to check your valves and other stuff. So my friend has an FX Romaniac, and he's been checking his. He's 200 hours into it with no trouble. So until this thing gives me a little bit of trouble starting, or I hit 200 hours, I'm not going to worry about it. Plus, most of the time you're riding this, you're not screaming its guts out. You're just kind of mellow cruising on it. Not sure if I'm on a road here or not. Feels kind of like a road, but it's been a while since I've been driven on. That's for sure. I'm coming out on this peninsula here. There's the town of Sandy Valley. It's kind of a steep drop off back there. A little hesitant to go down. I'm going to come down here and see what's up. Looks like I can get down here on the left, maybe. So the IMS tank, it's pretty good shape. Yeah, sometimes it hits your knees and stuff, but you're not going to get an extra gallon of capacity without having a little bit less room. That's for sure. Then the last thing about the tank is this bike already gets such good mileage, and that it'll get, if you're trying to get conserve, you're on a long ride, you can get 50, 55 without much trouble. So then the question becomes, do you even need the big tank? And I'll admit, most of the time I do not.